This video, we're going to be making a unit featuring 6 bundles and a closure of 10-inch hair from Unique Beauty. First, you want to make sure that the wig cap, and I'm using a spandex dome cap, is placed correctly on your canvas head, and you want to have a little bit bulkiness in the back because it's pushed all the way to the top. And then you're gonna place your closure down, and make sure you line your closure with that stitch that's already on the cap, and make sure you bring your closure down a little bit further so the hairline should be in front of the wig cap. And make sure you keep lining using that stitch as a guide, and remember to put the closure on the opposite side of that line, and make sure you do not sew through that stitch, you guys, because that is what gives your wig the stability to stretch. So now I'm going to go in with my needle, and I'm just going to poke a hole through the lace and the wig cap, and I'm going to take the needle and put it through the thread, creating like a knot. And as you can see, I'm doing it a little slow. And I like to call this method a hand tied method because it's like you're literally tying the thread into knots as you sew. So as you see, I'm going to keep stitching, but make sure that needle is going through the loop that you create. So every time you go around to poke a hole through the lace again, you want to make sure you're bringing the needle through the loop, as you can see, and it's going to create like a knot around the lace. And this is a great way to make sure your wigs don't come apart. They last over a year, because I have wigs that have lasted over a year. But yeah, and make sure you do not sew through that thread that stitch that's in the wig cap that I'm about to come upon. Go over it. Do not stitch through that, y'all. I cannot stress that enough. And right here, I'm just showing you guys an example of me not making the loop or tying a knot. But you can go back and just use your needle to pull that thread up, and make sure you put that, tie that knot. Just tie the knot, y'all. If you make a stitch that is too big, make sure you go back and secure it, because that will live till you go back in and stitch everything down so your wig can have as much durability as possible. If you've ever let your closure down a little too far and there's a little bit of extra lace left, you can easily get rid of that by taking your needle and going a little further back from the lace, and that's going to pull the lace and make it stretch. And now I'm just going to poke a hole through all the way through the wig cap and tie a knot. And once I'm done with that, I'm going to cut that extra string off because we do not need it. this part, make sure you only sew through that top layer of the wig band, so you can feel the difference when you're sewing all the way through it and when you're just sewing through the top layer. If you sew through that band, your wig is not going to be fitting proper and you're going to be pissed because you didn't made your wig too tight. So just sew through the top layer of mesh on there and you should be fine. And as you can see on this side, I do have a little extra lace left, so what I'm going to do is just go a little further down off my stitch pattern, and that's going to pull the lace back and give it some extra, I don't know, but it's going to make sure that the lace is not too far up, and when you cut the excess cap out, everything is going to be fine. So this is a method that you can do without going back and having to start all over, because as a stylist, time is your money and you got to keep going. So make sure you just go through it again and tie your knot, and your closure will be secured to the wig cap. And this is another thing that is small but helpful. Make sure you thread needles all at one time, because you don't want to stop to keep threading needles. You need to get about a good 20 needles and keep them threaded, and that's going to help your wig making process go by so much faster. So this is the band that you use, I guess, to pull your wig down or whatever. Before, when I first started making wigs, I did not sew on this part, but now I do, and it helps the wig come out more fuller. So make sure you do not sew through that band. Make sure you just sew through the top layer. I cannot stress that. Just sew through the top layer of this part, you guys. And this is just going to be for the bag bundle only. Do not sew through your stitches in a wig cap. I always sew around this part, because this is what gives your wig the elasticity, makes it stretch. So if you sew through that, it's going to be too tight and your wig won't have anywhere to fit over your head. That happened to me before. My wig was so tight. make wigs, I just do an ear to ear zigzag motion for the track placement. I recently started seeing people draw lines for their wigs patterns, but I never just draw lines. I just go ear to ear in a zigzag motion, and when I get to the crown of the head, I will stop and start closing that smile, because it's like a smile from the back. So out of the 6 bundles that I use, I only cut 2. I particularly do the flip over method all the time. I hate cutting tracks because I know that can cause some excess shedding. So when I get to the top, I usually do single out the tracks, but I wanted to use all of the hair, so I did take a double flipped over and use that as a top, piece of bundle at the top. So I'm just gonna sew that all the way down, and that's gonna be my end piece. And when it comes to the flip over method and sewing down those ends so they don't be bulky, just sew your thread down over that end like 3 or 4 times so it can be down, and the thread is gonna be pressed on top of that so it decreases the bulkiness. Now that I'm done, you can see my stitches through the wig, and now I'm just gonna cut off that excess cap because you don't need it. And this is the end of that closure. Not do any additional styling to this hair. This is the natural wave pattern, loose wave hair by Unique